20 hours, not 4, not 6. Not the window between 9:50 at night and 1:47 in the morning that every channel, every retired detective, every former FBI agent has been analyzing for 49 days, 20 hours. From 9:30 in the morning of January 31st, when a white vehicle was observed in the maze of streets surrounding Nancy Guthrie's home in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona, to 2:28 in the morning of February 1st, when Nancy's pacemaker transmitted its final signal. 20 hours of presence, of patience, of a plan executed in stages across an entire day, while Nancy Guthrie went about her Saturday, called an Uber, had dinner with her daughter's family, came home and went to bed in the house she had lived in for decades, believing she was safe. She was not safe. The white vehicle was already there when she woke up. It was still in that neighborhood when she called her Uber at 5:32 in the afternoon. And according to what the FBI has now confirmed, through their specific request to residents for footage from the 9:30 to 11:30 window of January 31st, that vehicle is now one of the central focuses of this investigation. Not the doorbell camera footage, not the backpack, not the ring or the tattoo. The vehicle that spent 20 hours in Nancy Guthrie's orbit, and that the Uber dashcam may have captured in real time as Nancy rode through her own neighborhood for the last time. This is what this video is about. Not the 4 hours everyone has been analyzing, the 20 hours no channel has assembled until now. Before any analysis, any theory, any evidence, we need to understand who this investigation is about. Because the moment she becomes a timeline rather than a person, we lose the most important thing. Nancy Long Guthrie was born on January 27, 1942 in Fort Worth, Kentucky, according to public records and family statements. She turned 84 years old 4 days before she disappeared. She raised 3 children in Arizona over more than 5 decades, Annie, Savannah, and Cameron, after her husband Charles died on a mining trip to Mexico in 1988.
Is Nancy Guthrie inside
She
this
was 46
speeding
years
car?
old.
A Ring camera
She
not
became
far
the
from her
mother
home
and the
captured
father
this video
overnight.
the night of her kidnapping.
She stayed in Tucson. She built a life. She kept her Sunday church appointments by video. She attended game nights with her family. She waved at the same neighbors who walked their dogs past her home on Camino Royale. She sent Christmas cards to people on her street. And every Saturday, faithfully, without exception, she had dinner with her daughter's family. On January 31st, 2026, she called an Uber at 5:32 in the afternoon to go to that dinner. She did not know she was being watched. She did not know that a white vehicle had been parked in her neighborhood since that morning. She did not know that the dashcam inside that Uber was recording the last known video of her alive. Her daughter Savannah said publicly, according to what IB Times documented, "We are blowing on the embers of hope that grandmother has not been found." As of March 21st, 2026, a day 49, no suspect has been publicly named, no arrest has been made. The reward stands at over $1.2 million. Before we go deeper, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell right now. Here at The Silenced Case, we do not speculate. We examine the documented evidence, the confirmed official statements, and the investigative patterns that experienced law enforcement recognizes, even when the public hasn't caught up with what the evidence is actually showing. New investigations and case updates every week. If you think the investigation of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance began at 1:47 in the morning when the doorbell camera went dark, watch this video first, then decide. Hit the like button and tell me in the comments, if the white vehicle was parked in that neighborhood at 9:30 in the morning, what does that tell you about how long this operation was actually planned? The white vehicle is where this investigation begins today. According to what Dave Mack, investigative reporter for Nancy Grace's Crime Stories, confirmed publicly on March 20th, 2026, the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department are specifically requesting footage from residents and businesses in the area surrounding Nancy Guthrie's home, focusing on the window between 9:30 and 11:30 in the morning of January 31st, not the evening, not the night, the morning. And they are looking specifically for a white vehicle. According to what John DePetro confirmed in reporting from Tucson on the same date, the streets surrounding Nancy Guthrie's home, via Entrada and the residential network that connects to it, form what multiple observers have described as a maze. The roads are poorly lit at night. The intersections are difficult to navigate without prior knowledge of the area. Street signs are not easily visible in the dark. Think about what that means specifically for the white vehicle. A person unfamiliar with the Catalina foothills who arrived in that neighborhood for the first time at night would struggle to navigate those streets efficiently. The darkness, the poor signage, the labyrinthine layout, all of it would slow them down, create hesitation, and increase the risk of making a wrong turn that draws attention. A person who had been in that neighborhood since 9:30 in the morning knew exactly where they were going. They had spent the daylight hours learning the routes, identifying the exit paths, confirming the sight lines, mapping the approach to Nancy Guthrie's property in conditions that were forgiving, daylight, low risk, no urgency, so that when the operation began in the darkness of the early morning hours, every turn was already committed to memory. According to what Scott Eicher, our founding member of the FBI's Cellular Analysis Survey team, stated publicly on the Nancy Grace program documented March 20th, if we can get a cell phone traveling with that vehicle at 10 in the morning, and there is every reason to believe the suspect's phone was still active at that hour, because why would it be turned off hours before the operation? Then investigators have a signal number. Because even if the suspect turned off their cell phone that night, they almost certainly did not turn it off at 10 in the morning. That is the investigative significance of the white vehicle at 9:30 a.m., not just visual evidence. A cell phone traveling with that car was almost certainly pinging towers in that neighborhood at that hour. And those tower dumps covered January 31st from the morning. According to what Joe Scott Morgan, a professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, stated publicly on the same program, if they can tie a cell phone to that vehicle at 10 in the morning and the same device appears in the tower dumps from February 1st, they have placed the same person in that neighborhood twice. That is 2 points of connectivity. That narrows the field dramatically. Before we examine the Uber footage, that January 31st vehicle needs one more layer of context because it did not arrive in a vacuum. January 11th, January 24th, January 31st, 3 Saturdays. 3 documented dates that investigators have specifically asked neighbors about. 3 separate instances of presence in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood before the night she was taken. But the white vehicle on January 31st is categorically different from the previous 2 dates. On January 11th, a neighbor noticed a stranger walking down the street, on foot, no vehicle identified. On January 24th, investigators asked about footage from that date but did not publicly identify what they were looking for. On
Is
January
Nancy Guthrie
31st, for the
inside
first
this
time,
speeding
investigators
car?
are
A
asking
Ring camera
specifically
not far
about a
from her home
vehicle,
captured
a
this
white
video
vehicle,
the night of her
at a
kidnapping.
specific time window, 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning. That specificity is the evidence that an evolution occurred between the first 2 visits and the third. The January 11th visit was reconnaissance on foot, learning the neighborhood from street level. The January 24th visit was a follow-up, confirming details, checking what had changed. The January 31st visit was different. It arrived in a vehicle, it arrived in the morning, and it stayed. For according to what Robin Dreeke confirmed publicly about the behavioral pattern of pre-operational surveillance, in up to 80% of home invasions, the final reconnaissance is the most extended. The person doing it is confirming, not exploring. They already know the layout. They are verifying that nothing has changed, that the target is following her expected routine, that the exit routes are clear, that the timing they have built their plan around is still accurate. That vehicle at 9:30 in the morning was the final confirmation. Everything else that day, the Uber, the dinner, the return home, the closing garage door, what was being watched, documented, confirmed. 20 hours of the last confirmation before the operation began. Now let us examine the element that connects the white vehicle to everything else this investigation has been building toward. The Uber footage, according to what multiple outlets confirmed, documented by NewsNation and the New York Post on March 19, 2026. The FBI now possesses dashcam footage from the Uber that Nancy Guthrie took on the evening of January 31st. The footage was turned over by the driver on day 47 of the investigation. 47 days after Nancy disappeared. The question of why it took 47 days deserves to be examined, not to assign blame, but because the delay is itself forensically significant. Most Uber drivers in major metropolitan areas use dashcam systems that record either the road ahead, the vehicle interior, or both simultaneously. The footage is typically stored on a memory card or a cloud-based system with a rolling overwrite, meaning that if footage is not specifically preserved, it can be lost within days or weeks as the system records over it. The fact that this footage survived 47 days means one of two things. Either the driver preserved it deliberately, which means he understood from day one that he may have been one of the last people to see Nancy Guthrie before her disappearance, or the system automatically retained it and the driver did not review it until much later. Either way, the FBI now has footage that covers a 20 to 30-minute window in the late afternoon of January 31st, moving through the precise streets where the white vehicle was observed that morning. According to what Brian Fitzgibbons stated publicly, you can go to great lengths to hide a cell phone, you can put it in a Faraday bag, but you cannot hide a car. A vehicle parked on Via Entrada or the surrounding streets in the afternoon of January 31st could not hide from a passing Uber dashcam. That is what the Uber footage is, and why it may be the most important piece of video evidence this investigation has produced. At 5:32 in the afternoon of January 31st, Nancy Guthrie requested an Uber from her home. The driver arrived. She got in. The vehicle traveled through the streets of the Catalina foothills, through Via Entrada, through the maze of poorly lit residential roads that surround her home, toward her daughter Annie's house for their regular Saturday dinner. According to what Dave Mack confirmed publicly, citing investigators who reviewed the footage, the Uber video did not reveal anything concerning about Nancy's demeanor. She appeared normal, a regular pickup and drop-off. Nothing she said or did suggested she was aware of any threat. But that is not why the Uber footage matters. The Uber footage matters because of what the dashcam captured outside the windows. Every frame of that footage contains data. Every vehicle visible along that route at 5:32 in the afternoon of January 31st is now part of the FBI's investigative record. Every car parked along Via Entrada, every vehicle that passed in the opposite direction, every license plate that the camera captured, even partially, through the windows of that Uber. If the white vehicle that investigators have identified from the morning was still present in that neighborhood at 5:32 in the afternoon, still parked, still positioned, still waiting, the Uber dashcam may have recorded it. A match between the morning sighting and the evening footage would be, according to what Brian Fitzgibbons of USPA Nationwide Security stated publicly, devastating evidence. Proof that someone spent the entire day in position. That is what the Uber footage is. Not a record of Nancy's final conversation, a moving forensic document of every vehicle in her neighborhood in the hours between the morning surveillance and the night of the abduction. The FBI can now cross-reference the morning vehicle against every vehicle visible in the Uber footage from 5:32 p.m. If the same vehicle appears in both, the same make, on the same color, the same parking position, then investigators have confirmed that the white vehicle was present in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood for at least 8 hours before the operation began. Possibly longer, possibly since before 9:30 in the morning, possibly the entire day. And here is the detail that makes the 20-hour timeline not just significant, but operationally essential to understanding what happened that night.
Is Nancy Guthrie inside this
The dog.
speeding car? A Ring camera
According
not
to
far
what
from her
Dave
home
Mack
captured
confirmed
this video the
publicly on
night
the
of her
Nancy Grace
kidnapping.
program at approximately 2 in the morning of February 1st, as the operation inside Nancy Guthrie's home was in its final stages, the dog belonging to the neighbor directly behind Nancy's property began barking frantically. At the same time, the two security cameras covering Nancy's backyard stopped connecting to Wi-Fi. Two things happening simultaneously in the back of the property at exactly the moment the operation reached its conclusion. This is not coincidence. This is a sequence. Someone came through the back of the property. The dog heard them. The cameras lost their signal, either because the Wi-Fi was deliberately disrupted or because the router was cut as part of the operation. And the route from the back of Nancy's property leads directly to the vacant house. The vacant house that sits, according to what Dave Mack confirmed specifically, off the backyard of Nancy Guthrie's home, not on her street, not across the road, behind her property. Which means someone who used that vacant house as a staging location did not need to approach Nancy's front door from the street, and they could walk through the desert terrain between the two properties, in the dark, in silence, along a path that no security camera was covering, and arrive at Nancy's back entrance without being recorded by a single device. According to what a retired Pima County SWAT commander assessed publicly in an exclusive interview with Parade, a vacant property near a target serves multiple operational functions: cover for observation, a place to store equipment, a reason to be in the area at unusual hours without attracting attention. But Dave Mack added a detail that goes beyond observation. According to his specific documented statement on March 20th, the perpetrators could have been in that house for days, watching the comings and goings. And when they decided it was time, at 2 in the morning, they walked across the backyard. No car needed, no getaway driver waiting on the street, no vehicle pulling up to a house at 2 a.m. in a quiet neighborhood where every neighbor has a Ring camera. Just a walk through a dark backyard from a vacant house to a gate near a swimming pool. According to what footage from 12 News captured from the air, FBI agents were subsequently observed walking that exact path through the side area of the property, past the pool, photographing the pool gate. The federal agents were reconstructing the route, and the route they were reconstructing began at the back, not the front. Now let us apply the behavioral analysis that gives the 20-hour timeline its most specific forensic weight. Robin Dreeke spent his career at the top of the FBI's behavioral analysis program, and he was the chief of the FBI's counterintelligence behavioral analysis unit. When he watched the footage of the suspect on Nancy Guthrie's porch, both on January 11th and on February 1st, he identified something that most coverage has described but not fully explained. According to what Dreeke stated publicly, documented in the Nancy Grace program on March 20th, nothing startles him. There is no change in tempo, no change in anything. The movement is fluid, continuous, undisrupted. Dreeke was specific about what that fluidity means. According to his documented assessment, if you show up on someone's doorstep and they have a Ring cam or Nest cam, you hear the alarm. You hear the thing going off inside. And that creates a pause, a startle, a moment of reassessment. In up to 80% of home invasions, there is a scouting phase. And there is a moment of testing security systems, of evaluating responses. The suspect on Nancy Guthrie's porch shows none of that. No pause, no startle, no reassessment. According to Dreeke's specific documented conclusion, that kind of fluidity, that absence of hesitation at a specific door, means one of two things. Either this person has done this before in general, across multiple locations, and the specific door no longer triggers a response, or this person has been at this specific door before, and Dreeke went further. According to what he stated publicly, I believe he is at least 1 degree of separation from Nancy in some capacity. He is not a complete stranger. The connection may not be intimate, it may be professional, a work crew, a maintenance visit. Yes, someone whose path crossed Nancy's world through legitimate proximity. But there is a connection, 1 degree of separation from Nancy Guthrie. In a neighborhood where the FBI is now asking for the names of every construction worker, every landscaper, every pool maintenance worker who had access to properties on and around Camino Royale. 1 degree of separation means someone whose name is on one of those lists. Someone who, at 9:30 in the morning of January 31st, parked a white vehicle on Via Entrada and began the final day of an operation that had been building for weeks. Now let us apply the 3-framework analysis this channel applies to every investigation. Our framework 1, the single operative with full-day surveillance. The first framework proposes that the white vehicle was operated by a single individual who spent the entire day of January 31st conducting final surveillance before the operation that night. This person arrived at 9:30 in the morning, possibly earlier, and remained in the area through the afternoon, observing Nancy's departure via Uber, her return with Tommaso at 9:50 p.m., and the closing of the
Is
garage
Nancy
door that
Guthrie
confirmed she was
inside
alone
this
inside.
speeding car? A ring
This
camera not
framework
far from her
explains the
home captured
20-hour
this video
timeline.
the night of her
It
kidnapping.
explains why the suspect appeared at the front door without hesitation at 1:52 in the morning, because he had spent the entire day confirming that every element of the plan was in place. He knew the neighborhood layout, he knew the exit routes, he had walked the terrain in daylight. It struggles with one question. A single person sitting in a vehicle in a residential neighborhood for 20 hours would eventually attract attention, even in a community where neighbors are accustomed to construction vehicles and service workers. The Catalina foothills has active, observant residents. Aldine Meister noticed a stranger simply walking down the street on January 11th. A full day in a parked vehicle is a long time to remain unnoticed, unless the vehicle moved periodically, unless the person had a reason to be there that appeared legitimate, unless at some point during those 20 hours they left the vehicle and used the vacant house. See Framework 2, the coordinated team with staged positions. The second framework proposes that this vehicle was one element of a coordinated operation involving multiple people with defined roles. One person, or more, in the vehicle conducting mobile surveillance of the neighborhood perimeter, a second person using the vacant house as a fixed observation post and staging location, and at least one more person who entered Nancy's property through the back while the suspect at the front door managed the camera. This framework explains the 20-hour timeline most convincingly. The vehicle could move, appearing at different points around the neighborhood at different times, never staying long enough in one position to attract sustained attention, while a second person remained in the vacant house with a continuous sight line to Nancy's property. It also explains what retired Pima County homicide detective Kurt Dabb assessed publicly to Parade. Based on the logistics of this operation, he believes 2 to 4 people were involved. The logistics of something of this magnitude are too much for one person to handle, in his professional opinion. According to what Maureen O'Connell, former FBI special agent, stated publicly, the blood pattern on Nancy's front porch was consistent with her being carried, not walking. 2 people carrying a person of Nancy's weight and medical condition through a backyard in the dark at 2 in the morning require coordination, prior knowledge of the route, and a destination already prepared. The vacant house was that destination. Framework 3. The insider who knew the exact window. The third framework, the one that the 20-hour timeline most directly supports, proposes that the person or persons responsible for this operation had specific advanced knowledge of Nancy Guthrie's Saturday routine that went beyond general observation. They knew she had dinner with her family every Saturday. They knew Tommaso would drive her home. They knew approximately when the garage door would close and she would be alone. That knowledge is not acquired by watching a house for a few hours from a parked vehicle. It is acquired over multiple visits. The 3 documented Saturday reconnaissance dates on January 11th, January 24th, and January 31st by someone who understood her specific patterns with enough precision to plan an operation that depended on them. Robin Dreeke said it directly. He has been on her porch before. He has seen this home from angles that strangers on the street never see. He moved with the comfort of someone who had already solved the problem of this property in his mind before the night he arrived to execute the solution. Each of these 3 frameworks converges on the same operational conclusion. The white vehicle at 9:30 in the morning was not the beginning of the day's preparation. It was the final confirmation of a plan that had been building across multiple weeks and multiple visits. Those hours were not waiting. They were execution, stage by stage, from morning reconnaissance to afternoon confirmation to nighttime operation. The 2 forensic developments connect to the 20-hour timeline in ways that coverage has not yet examined. The electrostatic lift prints. According to what Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, confirmed publicly, attempts to cast footprints from the exterior of Nancy Guthrie's property failed, almost certainly because the walkway surface was gravel, which does not retain impressions suitable for traditional casting. But investigators from the FBI are now attempting electrostatic document lifts from inside the house. Electrostatic lifting is a forensic technique that uses electrical charge to recover dust impressions, footprints left in dust, or particulate matter on hard surfaces like tile, hardwood, and carpet that are invisible to the naked eye. A mylar sheet is placed over the suspected surface and charged. The negative charge on the sheet attracts the positive charge of the dust particles, lifting the impression and preserving it for laboratory analysis. According to Morgan's specific assessment, if someone spent time inside Nancy's home, more than a brief transit through the front door, they left impressions on those floors. Every step leaves particulate. And if the FBI can recover those impressions through electrostatic lifting, they can compare them to footwear evidence collected at the vacant house and along the route through the backyard. One more
Is Nancy
filter,
Guthrie
one more thread
inside this
converging on the
speeding
same
car?
narrow
A ring
population,
camera not far from
the
her home
pharmaceutical
captured this
records.
video the night of her kidnapping.
According to what Scott Eicher confirmed publicly on the Nancy Grace program, he documented March 20th. The FBI is actively searching pharmaceutical databases for records of prescriptions similar to Nancy Guthrie's medications being filled in the period since February 1st. This investigative step carries a specific implication that deserves to be stated clearly. The FBI does not search pharmaceutical records unless they believe those records might exist. A prescription search in the context of a missing person investigation means investigators believe there is a possibility, however uncertain, that Nancy Guthrie has been kept alive and that someone has attempted to obtain her medications, her pacemaker medication, her heart medication. The prescriptions that Sheriff Nanos said in the first week of the investigation were critical to her survival. If someone filled those prescriptions at any pharmacy, in any state, under any name, there is a camera, there is a transaction record, there is a trail. The FBI is following that trail right now. Step back from the individual elements. A white vehicle observed at 9:30 in the morning of January 31st, 20 hours before Nancy's pacemaker transmitted its last signal. An Uber dashcam recording the last known video of Nancy alive and potentially capturing that same white vehicle still present in the neighborhood at 5:32 in the afternoon. A cell phone traveling with that vehicle at 10 in the morning, almost certainly active, almost certainly pinging towers, almost certainly now part of the FBI's tower dump analysis. Plus a vacant house behind Nancy's property, identified as a possible staging location by a retired SWAT commander, from which someone could have watched her return home and walk to her back entrance without a single camera recording their approach. A dog barking at 2 in the morning and 2 backyard cameras losing Wi-Fi simultaneously, confirming the rear approach at the exact moment the operation reached its conclusion. FBI agents photographed from the air walking the path from the pool gate through the side of the property, reconstructing the route that the evidence indicates was used. Robin Dreeke, former chief of the FBI's Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Unit, saying publicly that the suspect's fluidity at Nancy's door means he had been there before. 1 degree of separation from Nancy, not a stranger. Electrostatic lift prints being attempted inside the house, a technique that can recover footwear impressions invisible to the naked eye. Pharmaceutical records being searched, because investigators believe Nancy may still be alive and someone may have tried to obtain her medications. Every one of these elements is documented. Everyone is sourced to a named professional or verified report, and everyone points in the same direction. This was a 20-hour operation executed by people who knew this neighborhood, knew this property, and knew Nancy Guthrie's Saturday routine with a precision that only proximity produces. They were not strangers who picked a house at random. They were in that neighborhood at 9:30 in the morning, while Nancy Guthrie was still inside. And here is the accountability question that the 20-hour timeline demands be asked. Sheriff Chris Nanos said publicly, on record, in an NBC News interview on March 13th, "I think from day one we had some strong beliefs about what happened, and those beliefs haven't diminished. He knows the motive. He has known since day one." According to what Dave Mack documented publicly on March 20th, in the past week, Nanos visited his gym on 4 of 5 days, spending 90 minutes or more inside on each visit, while completing only 2 7-hour shifts at the sheriff's department. The white vehicle tower dump requires Pima County coordination. The pharmaceutical record search requires authorization that flows through the office of the sheriff with primary jurisdiction. The electrostatic lift analysis requires a chain of custody his department must maintain. Every filter that could identify the white vehicle flows through his office. That vehicle is still unidentified. As of March 21st, 2026, day 49, the investigation is active. The FBI is cross-referencing the white vehicle against Uber dashcam footage. The tower dump covers January 31st from the morning. The electrostatic lift analysis is underway. The pharmaceutical search is active. The reward stands at over $1.2 million. Tips: 1-800-CALL-FBI. Pima County Sheriff, 520-351-4900. If you live in the Catalina foothills and saw a white vehicle parked on Via Entrada or the surrounding streets on the morning of January 31st, that is the tip the FBI needs most right now. Not from that night, from that morning. Well, before we close, in the last video, this channel examined the ring and the tattoo that the suspect left visible on the FBI footage. Many of you asked in the comments what the 5 minutes between 1:47 and 1:52, between the camera going dark and the suspect appearing, revealed about the person already inside the house. The 20-hour timeline this video has examined adds one more layer to that answer. The person already inside did not arrive at 1:47. They may have been in that neighborhood since 9:30 in the morning. They may have walked through the backyard from the vacant house, and they
Is Nancy
disconnected the
Guthrie
camera not because the
inside this
plan
speeding
required it
car?
at that
A
exact
ring camera
moment,
not
but
far from
because
her
the
home
dog was
captured this
already
video the
barking
night of
and
her
they needed to
kidnapping.
move. In the comments this week, if the Uber dash cam captured that vehicle still present in the neighborhood at 5:32 in the afternoon, what do you believe that proves about how far in advance the final phase of this operation was confirmed? Nancy Guthrie called an Uber on a Saturday afternoon to go have dinner with her daughter's family. She did it every week. She had done it dozens of times before. She had no reason to believe that Saturday was different from any other. The white vehicle was already there when she got into that car. It was there when she arrived at Annie's house. It was there when Tommaso drove her home. It was there when the garage door closed. And someone connected to that vehicle, connected to that neighborhood, connected to that vacant house behind her property, was counting the hours. 20 of them. And Nancy Guthrie deserves to come home. Her family deserves answers. And the person who spent 20 hours in her neighborhood on January 31st, 20 hours that the FBI is now reconstructing minute by minute through tower dumps, dashcam footage, and footwear impressions, left a trail that does not disappear. 20 hours. The FBI is counting them now. Before we close, one more development that this video cannot ignore. Sally Ann Farina, 68 years old, missing in Pima County since March 19th. Last seen near the junction of Orange Grove Road and La Chola Boulevard in Tucson, approximately 3 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. No official connection between the two cases has been established. That must be stated clearly. But Sheriff Nano said publicly, about the Nancy Guthrie case, I think this person could absolutely strike again. And former FBI agent Steve Moore said directly, if this is not a kidnapping for ransom, the things that drove them to commit this crime will recur. Both statements were made before Sally Ann Farina disappeared. The 20-hour surveillance of Nancy Guthrie did not begin as random violence. It began with reconnaissance, with Saturday visits, with the patience of someone who understood that the right target requires the right preparation. A second elderly woman missing in the same county, 3 miles away, 2 days after the FBI returned to Nancy's neighborhood asking for individual names. That is the urgency this investigation carries right now. The 20 hours that someone spent watching Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood on January 31st did not end with her disappearance. The pattern that produced those 20 hours is still out there. The investigation continues. This investigation has been presented with complete respect for Nancy Guthrie and her family. Every analysis presented here is grounded in official law enforcement statements, court documents, and verified reporting from national news organizations, including NewsNation, Nancy Grace Crime Stories, Fox News Digital, Parade, The New York Post, 12 News Tucson, and KOLD-TV. Expert assessments are attributed to named professionals speaking publicly in their own capacity. The frameworks presented are investigative tools, not conclusions about any individual's guilt or criminal liability, and no individual has been named as a suspect by law enforcement, and the presumption of innocence applies to every person referenced in this video who has not been charged with a crime. The Guthrie family has been officially cleared by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. If this investigation moved you, subscribe to the Silenced Case, hit that notification bell. Because here we do not speculate, we examine what the evidence actually shows, and in this case, the evidence was never meant to be found.